One sentence, 14 words. That's all it took to change professional wrestling forever. June 23rd, 1996. A mid-card wrestler who Vince McMahon wanted to name Chili McFreeze grabs a microphone after a King of the Ring final that nobody expected him to win and says 14 words that would generate over $1 billion in merchandise revenue. $1 billion. This is the T-drop. This is the moment that created the Attitude Era. Happy 316 Day. Before we get to that moment, you gotta understand what Steve Austin was dealing with. Because the guy who changed wrestling didn't just walk in and do it. He got fired first. Steve Austin was in WCW. He was good. He knew he was good. Eric Bischoff didn't see it. Bischoff fired Austin over the phone in 1995 while the man was recovering from an injury. Over the phone. That's a move so disrespectful that it should go in a Hall of Fame for bad business decisions. Because that phone call, that moment of disrespect, is what lit the fire. Austin goes to ECW, Paul Heyman lets him cut promos, real promos, no script, no bullet points, just a microphone and a pissed off Texan. And that's where you start hearing the real Stone Cold voice. Not the Ringmaster, not stunning Steve Austin, the guy who doesn't give a damn about your feelings. Then the WWF comes calling.
Just started talking right away with the sales pitch. He goes, want to bring in, and I'd already met with Vince McMahon 3 times, and I could see that they didn't have any interest in me as like a superstar. They were bringing me in as what we call in the business a mechanic, a guy who is very proficient in the ring and can have good matches with anybody, and you need those guys on the crew, right? That's all they had for me.
And what do they give him? The Ringmaster. Ted DiBiase's protege. A gimmick. You know what Steve Austin said about the Ringmaster?
And I knew that there was no future in being the Ringmaster. And I watched his show on HBO about that serial killer, Richard Kuklinski, who was a hitman over in Chicago, whatever. And I don't endorse nothing the guy did, but the guy was called Iceman because he was very cold-blooded. And but I was a heel in the business. I was a bad guy.
Okay.
So it's my job to be hated. So I took that idea and I called the office. I said, hey man, I got this idea. I want to be like a cold-blooded, remorseless, a heel. And I told them about the Iceman name. Well, there was a guy in Texas at World Class Championship Wrestling who had already been the Iceman King Parsons, because we don't want to do that. And so they sent me 3 pages of these horrible names. Fang McFrost, Otto Von Ruthless, and Ice Dagger. And I'm thinking these guys are supposed to be creative geniuses, and this is the best they got. And I was like, I threw the pages up. I said, my wife at the time was from England, and they drink hot tea over there. So she brought me a cup of hot tea, and she goes, oh, don't worry about it. Just drink your tea before it gets stone cold. And she said, that's your name, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I called the office. I pitched it. I said, hey, man, I want to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I want to be from Victoria, Texas.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, he named himself because nobody in that company understood what they had. And here's the crazy thing. The name almost didn't happen. If one of those executives had pushed harder for Chili McFreeze, we'd be celebrating McFreeze Day right now. Think about that. Drop a sad face in the comments if you would have still been a fan of Chili McFreeze. June 23rd, 1996, the King of the Ring pay-per-view. And here's the thing. Austin was not supposed to be the story of this event. The original plan was for Triple H to win the whole tournament. Hunter Hart Helmsley was Vince's guy, but Triple H had done something backstage beforehand, the curtain call incident at Madison Square Garden, and Vince needed to punish him. So who gets the tournament win instead? The bald guy in the black trunks that nobody at the top had real plans for. Austin tears through the bracket, beats Mark Miro, beats Savio Vega, and in the finals, he faced Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, Jake's gimmick at this point was born-again Christian. He's quoting scriptures, talking about John 3:16, and Austin destroys him. The match itself, honestly, not great. Austin won in under 5 minutes, but what happens after the match, that changed everything. Austin grabs the mic, Jake Roberts is laid out on the mat, the crowd is watching, and Steve Austin, not a character, not a script, not a gimmick, looks into the camera.
Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass.
14 words at the end. That's the quote. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass. And that right there is the birth certificate of the Attitude Era. Now, here's what makes this genius. Austin didn't just insult Jake Roberts. He took the religious catchphrase, the most famous Bible verse in America, the one you see at football games on giant signs, and he flipped it. He made it about himself. He made it confrontational. He made it cool. And within weeks, Austin 3:16 became the best-selling t-shirt in WWF history. From 14 words on a B-level pay-per-view, that's the most profitable promo in the history of professional wrestling. After King of the Ring, Austin starts picking fights with everyone. But there's one guy in particular who becomes his target, Bret the Hitman Hart. Now, Bret at this time is the top babyface in the company. He's the good guy. He's Canada's hero. Kids love him. And Austin is supposed to be the villain. But something weird starts happening. The fans start cheering Austin, not because he's the good guy, because he's real. He doesn't follow rules. He doesn't respect authority. He says what everyone's thinking. And in 1996 to 1997, with people working dead-end jobs and feeling like the system was rigged against them, Stone Cold Steve Austin felt like the first honest person on television. This all builds to WrestleMania 13, March 23rd, 1997, Chicago. Austin versus Bret Hart in a submission match with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee. And what happens in this match is what the wrestling world calls the greatest double turn in history. The match is brutal. These two beat the hell out of each other. And then the moment happens. Bret Hart locks Austin in the sharpshooter. Austin's face is covered in blood. And instead of tapping out, instead of giving up, Austin screams through the pain amid defeat. And the crowd erupts. Not for Bret Hart, who technically won, but for Austin, the guy who lost, because in that moment, every single person in that arena understood something. Stone Cold Steve Austin would rather die than give up. And that is the most babyface thing anyone has ever done in professional wrestling. Bret Hart walks out the heel. Austin walks out as the biggest babyface in the company without saying a single word, without winning a single match. He just refused to quit. And America said, that's our guy. I want you to think about something. WrestleMania 13 had the lowest buy rate of any WrestleMania ever. Nobody bought this show. But the one match everyone remembers, the one moment everyone talks about 29 years later, was Austin refusing to quit. And that's the difference between ratings and legacy. After WrestleMania 13, Austin's popularity explodes. The 316 shirts are everywhere, the middle fingers, the beer, the stunners, it's a movement. And Vince McMahon, who is one of the smartest men in entertainment history, sees something nobody else sees. He sees that the real money isn't Austin fighting other wrestlers. The real money is Austin fighting the Boss. October 1997, Raw. This is the night everything changes behind the scenes. They do a segment, and this is the one that a lot of people point to as the true beginning of the Austin versus McMahon rivalry. The Austin versus McMahon feud is bar none the most profitable rivalry in wrestling history. It turned the Monday Night Wars from a WCW blowout into a WWF domination. And it all came from the simple idea, the working man versus the corporate machine. This builds to WrestleMania 14. March 29th, 1998. Austin versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship, with Mike Tyson as the special enforcer. And this is where Stone Cold goes from being a star to being the star. Austin hits the stunner. Tyson counts to 3. And Austin, the guy who was fired over the phone by WCW, the guy who was almost named Chili McFreeze, the guy who cut a promo that nobody expected to matter, is the WWF champion. And the Attitude Era isn't just born anymore, it's running the business. Within 1 year of that title win, the WWF went from losing the Monday Night Wars to dominating them. And they didn't stop for 3 years straight, all because of Austin 316. Once Austin was champion, the chaos was unlimited. And I mean that literally. They let this man do whatever he wanted on live television. Let me run through some of the greatest moments because on 316 Day, we gotta pay our respects. The beer truck. March 22nd, 1999. Austin drives a Coors Light truck into the arena and soaks McMahon, Shane, and The Rock with 1,000 gallons of beer. The ring was a swimming pool. This is probably the single most replayed segment in Raw history. The hospital beatdown. Austin shows up to McMahon's hospital room and beats him with a bedpan, then threatens him with an enema on national television. 6.5 ratings. The Stunners. My God, the Stunners. Austin hit everybody. McMahon, Shane, Rock, Triple H, referees, commentators, his own tag team partners. The man was an equal opportunist stunner distributor. And that's what made Austin different from every other wrestling star. The Rock was cool, Triple H was tough, Undertaker was legendary. But Stone Cold was dangerous. You never knew what he was gonna do, and that unpredictability, that's what kept 10 million people tuning in every Monday night. So it's 2026. It's been 30 years since the King of the Ring promo. 30 years since 14 words changed an industry. And I want to talk about why it still matters. Why we celebrate 316 Day. Why Austin's impact is still being felt right now. Look at what's happening in wrestling today. You know why WWE got that Netflix deal? Because of the Attitude Era. Because of the cultural moment that Stone Cold Steve Austin created. Netflix didn't buy WWE for the wrestling. They bought it for the brand. And that brand was built by Austin. Look at the Chris Van Vliet interview from this year. Austin sat down at Broken Skull Ranch and talked for over an hour. Nearly 1 million views. The man hasn't had a regular match since WrestleMania 19 in 2003. Came back for one match at WrestleMania 38 and people still can't get enough. You want to know the real legacy of Austin 316? It's not the shirts. It's not the stunners. It's not even the ratings. It's this. Stone Cold Steve Austin proved that authenticity is the most powerful force in entertainment. He wasn't playing a character. He was being himself. Turned up to 11. And the audience felt it. Happy 316 Day, everyone. If you haven't already, go back and watch the previous videos. We covered the 5 most savage Stone Cold moments WWE wants you to forget. Link is in the description and right up there. This entire 316 weekend on the Arrowstream has been about honoring the rattlesnake. And I gotta say, making this content reminded me why I fell in love with wrestling in the first place. It wasn't about just the moves or just the championships. It was the feeling of wrestling. It was the feeling of watching someone who didn't give a damn about the rules and changed the world anyway. So here's my question to you, and I really want you to answer this one. What's your favorite Stone Cold moment? Not the obvious ones, your personal favorites. The one that hits different for you. Drop it in the comments. I'll read every single one. Thank you for watching. If this hit, like and subscribe. We're building something real here at the Arrowstream. I'll see you on the next one, and that's the bottom line.
'Cause Stone Cold said so.